If you ask, like, anyone on the street where the phrase saved by the bell comes from, they will immediately tell you this terrifying, incredibly detailed story.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's always about people being buried alive in the 1800s. They'll describe this desperate, gasping victim pulling a string from inside a coffin.
Right, in the pitch black.
Exactly. And they would be completely, entirely wrong.
It's actually wild. The persistence of that specific myth is just staggering, really.
It is.
We use everyday phrases constantly, but we rarely, stop to think about the actual architecture of the language we're using.
Yeah, nobody fact-checks their own idioms.
Exactly. But the moment someone offers up this dark, macabre origin story, we just accept it without question. I mean, our brains simply prefer a gothic horror story over mundane reality.
Which brings us to our mission for you on today's deep dive. We're going to dissect that exact phenomenon.
It's a fun one today.
It really is. We're pulling from a fascinating excerpt today from an article titled 13 Why Do We Say Saved by the Bell?
A great source.
Yeah, and we are going to use this material to separate the Victorian facts from the absolute fiction.
Because there's a lot of fiction there.
Oh, tons. We're going to uncover where our language actually comes from and analyze why human beings are so, eager to believe myths that are stranger than fiction.
The journey through this source material is super revealing, too. I mean, it takes us from the incredibly grim fears of the 19th century directly into, well, the sweat and adrenaline of competitive sports.
Which is quite the pivot.
It really is. And along the way, it exposes this massive blind spot in how we understand our own vocabulary.
I am certain that you, listening to this right now, have used the phrase.
Oh, most definitely.
Right. Like you're backed into a corner, you're facing a huge deadline at work, or you're stuck in a situation where the pressure is just mounting.
We've all been there.
And then an external interruption happens. The phone rings, or the clock strikes 5, and you get this last-minute reprieve from a totally unpleasant situation.
You get to walk away?
Yeah. You wipe the sweat from your brow and you say, man, I was saved by the bell.
And you're basically invoking physical danger when you say that.
But the true history of that danger is radically different than the ghost stories we tell each other.
It's completely different. The contrast between the story we want to believe and the reality of the historical record, it just tells us so much about human imagination.
It really does.
But to really grasp it, I think we have to start by looking at the specific mechanics of the myth itself.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the mechanics of the graveyard myth are straight out of an Edgar Allan Poe story.
Oh, 100%. It's perfectly Gothic.
The widespread theory claims that Saved by the Bell alludes directly to an old-timey practice designed to prevent the ultimate nightmare, which is, waking up 6 feet underground.
Which was a massive fear back then.
Huge fear. So the source text details how these special coffins were allegedly fitted with a system of cords or strings.
The visual of it is just chilling. The theory basically posits that these strings would be attached to the inside of the coffin, running all the way up through the packed dirt, right to the surface of the graveyard.
Just a string going right up through the soil.
Exactly. And above ground, those strings were tied to a little bell hanging near the headstone.
See, the logic of the myth is what makes it so infectious. Like, if you find yourself in that pitch-black, suffocating scenario, realizing you've been prematurely buried.
Panic sets in immediately.
Yeah, but you don't just scream into the void. You reach out, you find that cord in the dark, and you just pull it for dear life.
And up in the misty graveyard, maybe a watchman or a passerby would hear this violent, frantic ringing.
Ding, 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 right from the grave.
Exactly. They would grab a shovel, dig you out, and you would be quite literally saved by the bell.
It's crazy.
It is an undeniably ingenious idea which the text explicitly highlights. And that ingenuity is the engine driving the popularity of the rumor.
I mean, think about it like a modern-day panic button.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, today we have panic buttons on our car key fobs or, those emergency SOS features on our smartphones that trigger an alert if we get into a car crash or fall down alone.
We love our safety nets.
We surround ourselves with fail-safes. This myth essentially claims the Victorians installed a 19th century analog panic button into a wooden box.
That's exactly what it is.
It appeals to us because it takes this uncontrollable primal fear and applies a very simple mechanical solution to it.
Yeah, that framing hits on the exact reason the myth survives.
Yeah.
It provides a sense of control over the uncontrollable.
Right.
It gives the victim agency. But as we pivot from the terrifying mechanics of the myth to the actual historical evidence provided in our source,
Here comes the reality check.
Yeah, the narrative begins to completely unravel.
Really unravels.
We have to examine whether these specific coffins actually existed, and more crucially, whether they actually spawned the phrase we are using today.
Right, because the text gives us a fascinating historical timeline to work with. It acknowledges that these graveyard alert systems, which were commonly known as safety coffins,
Such a creepy name.
right, but they were indeed real inventions. They weren't merely the fabrications of modern horror writers.
No, people in the 1800s were genuinely terrified of premature burial.
And inventors capitalized on that panic.
Big time. The patent records actually prove it.
They really do.
Our source notes that various designs for these safety coffins were patented starting from at least the 1860s.
Wow, so right in the middle of the 19th century.
Yep. The earliest specific reference to this post-mortem technology in the text dates back to 1868.
1868.
The physical objects were absolutely being designed, and inventors were actively securing patents for them.
So the technological timeline is solid, but the linguistic timeline just completely dismantles the entire theory.
It shatters it.
Our source emphasizes that the earliest recorded reference to the phrase "saved by the bell" did not appear until almost 3 decades after that 1868 patent.
Think about that gap.
It's massive. We're looking at a gap of nearly 30 years between the invention of the coffin panic button and the first time anyone actually documented the phrase in writing.
That 30-year gap is fatal to the myth.
Yeah, it really is.
Furthermore, the text is completely definitive on this point. There is zero evidence that the phrase "saved by the bell" was ever used in the context of safety coffins.
Not at all.
None. The contemporary literature, the advertisements for the coffins, the diaries of the era, none of them use the phrase.
And to compound the issue, there is little to no historical evidence of anyone ever actually being saved by one of these mechanisms outside of fictional stories.
Right, it was all theoretical.
I have to admit, I'm feeling a little sense of disappointment.
I know, it's a letdown.
And I imagine you listening might feel it too. The graveyard story is so cinematic. It has high stakes, a desperate protagonist, a dramatic rescue.
It's ready for Hollywood.
Exactly. Why are human beings so eager to believe a scary movie trope over the mundane reality? Like, why do we collectively ignore a 30-year chronological gap just to keep a creepy rumor alive?
Well, what's fascinating here is the psychological phenomenon known as folk etymology.
Folk etymology. Okay.
Yeah. When everyday people encounter a phrase that no longer makes obvious sense in modern contexts, their brains automatically try to backform a logical explanation.
Now that makes sense. So we're just filling in the blanks.
Precisely. We see the historical existence of a safety coffin with a bell. We hear the modern phrase "saved by the bell," and the brain creates a narrative shortcut connecting the two.
Even if the timeline makes no sense.
Right. We desperately want to project a dramatic, literal meaning onto the language because a story about cheating death is far more memorable than a story about linguistic drift.
That's so true.
But the complete lack of practical, documented evidence is the final nail in the coffin, pun intended, for the graveyard theory.
Okay, so the facts force us to leave the cemetery. The timeline rules out Victorian grave sites entirely.
Completely ruled out.
Which means our investigation into the text has to transition to the actual environment where this phrase was born almost 3 decades later.
Right, moving forward in time.
Yeah. And the environment we are moving to is devoid of ghosts and graveyard mist,
Yeah.
but it is defined by a very visceral, immediate type of physical brutality.
A very different kind of danger.
The phrase was actually born in the highly competitive world of late 19th century boxing.
Such a brutal sport back then, too.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the bell we are referencing in the phrase is literally the brass bell rung at the end of a boxing round.
Exactly.
The origin is grounded entirely in the limits of human endurance.
This text paints a very clear picture of this dynamic. I mean, imagine a boxer in the ring who has been pushed to the absolute brink.
Just dead on his feet.
Yeah, he's exhausted, his defense is crumbling, and he is taking a severe beating. He's on the verge of being knocked out, which means losing the fight immediately.
And his opponent is winding up for the final devastating blow.
And a split second before that punch connects to end the fight, the bell rings.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. The round is officially over. The rules of the sport dictate that all hostility must cease immediately.
Wow.
That boxer isn't being saved from suffocating underground. He is receiving a fortuitous, crucial moment's respite from physical trauma.
He gets to retreat to his corner.
Exactly. He sits on the stool, his trainers give him water, and he has a strict, timed window to recover his physical energy ahead of the next round.
So the stakes have completely shifted.
Right, they've shifted from dodging a premature burial to dodging a literal knockout.
If you think about the physical relief in that moment, the analogy becomes incredibly relatable even for those of us who, don't step into a boxing ring.
Oh, for sure.
Like, imagine you were getting a last-minute calendar notification that a grueling, hours-long meeting has been canceled.
The best feeling in the world.
Right. Or imagine you're carrying a massive, heavy piece of furniture up 3 flights of stairs.
Oh, man, your arms are burning.
Your grip is slipping, your muscles are on fire, your legs are shaking, and you are milliseconds away from dropping this heavy object and causing a total disaster.
Yeah.
Then the person at the top of the stairs yells, "Put it down, we made it."
You just collapse.
The sheer overwhelming relief of releasing that tension and letting your muscles rest, that is the exact mechanism of the reprieve the boxer feels. The bell is a signal that you can finally drop the weight.
That physical mechanism perfectly encapsulates why the boxing origin aligns so flawlessly with how we use the phrase today.
Because it matches our everyday stress.
Exactly. When we say we were saved by the bell, we are never actually talking about escaping death.
No, never.
We're talking about a sudden, externally mandated pause in hostility or difficulty that allows us to catch our breath. We're talking about a moment to recover before the next round of challenges begins.
Which makes so much sense.
The context of a competitive sporting event maps perfectly onto our modern usage.
It requires zero mental gymnastics to understand the boxing connection.
Not at all.
Yet, the gravitational pull of that Victorian graveyard myth is just relentless.
People love the creepy stuff.
It is so powerful, so infectious, that according to the source material, it actually jumped over and infected an entirely different English idiom with the exact same false backstory.
It's amazing how that happens. The safety coffin rumor acts like a contagion in our vocabulary.
Contagion. Yeah.
It just refuses to die, and instead it attaches itself to the phrase dead ringer.
Oh, dead ringer. Let's look at how we use that today.
Yeah, let's look at it.
If you tell a friend they are a dead ringer for a famous actor, you're telling them they are an exact duplicate.
A perfect match.
Right. They look so identical that they could act as a perfect substitute. And the text points out that the morbid safety coffin myth was recycled wholesale to explain this phrase as well.
Which is just crazy to think about.
It is. The fabricated narrative claims that the unfortunate person waking up underground and violently pulling the bell cord from inside the coffin was a dead ringer.
It's a phenomenal example of folk etymology at work again.
Because it sounds plausible if you don't think about it.
Exactly. It sounds incredibly clever. It plays on the words dead and ringer in a very literal sense.
But just like the previous myth, the text debunks this entirely.
Completely.
To find the truth, we have to leave the boxing ring and enter yet another highly competitive, high-stakes sporting arena.
The world of horse racing.
Horse racing. Okay, so if a ringer in modern terms is an exact substitute, does this origin involve illegally swapping out animals before a race to manipulate the betting odds?
That is the exact mechanism of the deception.
Oh, wow.
In the fiercely competitive environment of horse racing, unscrupulous owners would orchestrate this elaborate scam to deceive both the bettors and the bookies.
So it was all about the hustle.
Always about the money. They would take a highly successful, fast horse and secretly swap it out for a look-alike.
Okay.
This substitute horse, the one brought in to manipulate the outcome of the race and the subsequent payouts, was known specifically as a ringer.
Got it. So the entire hustle relies on absolute visual perfection.
It has to be seamless.
The perpetrators need a horse that looks so remarkably identical to the original animal that the seasoned experts at the betting window won't notice the discrepancy.
Right, because if they notice, the scam is over.
The substitute has to be flawless. But that explanation only covers half the phrase. We still have to account for the word dead.
The tricky part.
And as a lover of language, I see this as the ultimate linguistic trap. Like, the mere presence of the word dead acts as a glaring neon sign pointing the modern brain straight toward a cemetery.
It's an automatic association.
We see that word and we automatically assume a morbid, literal context. So what does this all mean for the grammar at play here?
Well, it means we are fundamentally misinterpreting the grammatical function of the word.
How so?
The text clarifies this beautifully. The dead, in dead ringer, has absolutely nothing to do with being deceased.
Interesting.
It is not an adjective describing a lack of life. It functions entirely as an intensifier.
An intensifier simply amplifies the word that follows it, meaning absolute or exact. Our source text provides excellent everyday examples to prove this point. When you say something is in the dead center of a room, you aren't talking about the center of a corpse.
No, obviously not.
You mean the exact, precise center.
Right.
If you complain that you are dead tired after a long trip, you're merely saying you were absolutely exhausted.
Or if you declare someone is dead right in an argument.
Right. They are perfectly correct.
Therefore, a dead ringer is simply an absolute exact substitute. It's a flawless duplicate.
Logic is just airtight.
It really is.
The grammar proves it, the history of horse racing proves it, and yet people will still fiercely defend the zombie coffin theory.
Oh, they will fight you on it. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals a profound truth about how susceptible we are to dramatic narratives.
We really are.
We have this deep-seated tendency to project dark, literal interpretations onto everyday sports jargon. We take perfectly logical phrase, born from the strategy of cheating bookmakers at a racetrack. We trip over the linguistic intensifier dead, and our collective imagination immediately drafts an elaborate screenplay about Victorian graveyards.
It's so wild.
We obscure the real history because the fake history is just more entertaining.
We essentially trick ourselves using our own vocabulary. We desperately want the world beneath our words to be filled with Gothic mysteries.
Who doesn't love a mystery?
Right. But the reality presented in our source material is grounded in the grit of human endeavor.
Yep, the real world.
The true origins are usually just folks sweating it out in a boxing ring or trying to run a fast hustle at the local racetrack.
And that reality is its own kind of fascinating history.
Truly.
The sweat, the strategy, the physical limits of competition, and the desire to game the system, these are the actual crucibles where our everyday idioms are forged.
They're human stories, not ghost stories. Well, let's summarize the incredible journey this text has taken us on today. We started deep in the supposedly bell-ringing Victorian graveyards of the 1860s, analyzing safety coffins that, while historically real and patented, never actually contributed a single word to our modern vocabulary.
Not one word.
We then jumped forward 3 decades to the exhausted, high-stakes corners of a 19th century boxing ring, discovering where the real, physical reprieve of being saved by the bell was actually born.
The true origin.
And finally, we ended up at the deceptive betting windows of the horse racing track, learning that a dead ringer is just a fraudulent horse. And the word dead is nothing more than a grammatical intensifier meant to emphasize an exact match.
It serves as a brilliant reminder for all of us.
It really does.
While the macabre, spooky stories about cheating death are incredibly fun to tell, our language is deeply, inextricably rooted in the physical world.
Very true.
It's rooted in the exhaustion of the athlete, the cunning strategy of the gambler, and the universal human need for a momentary pause from pressure.
It's a testament to the fact that truth doesn't need to be horrifying to be interesting.
Absolutely not.
But seeing how easily and completely our collective imagination rewrote the histories of both Saved by the Bell and Dead Ringer, it leaves you with a lingering question.
Oh, for sure.
If we so eagerly fabricated these spooky backstories just to make our vocabulary feel more dramatic, what other mundane, everyday idioms that you use constantly are currently harboring wildly fabricated, macabre origins just waiting to be fact-checked?
Oh, I suspect the English language is hiding quite a few of those linguistic traps in plain sight.
I would bet money on it. Something for you to ponder the next time you find yourself casually tossing out an idiom in conversation.
Keep your ears open.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the archives of our language. You are now fully armed with the real history and the debunked myths to share at your next social gathering.
Go ruin some ghost stories.
The next time someone tries to entertain the room with a story about graveyard bells and premature burials, you can step right into the ring and set the record straight.